The advantage of a gel coat finish is that it can be wet sanded right through the papers from 300 right through to 1200 is generally where I stop, and then it can be buffed out. That is the advantage over paint. The disadvantage of gel coat is that it can be wet sanded from 360 grit through to 1200 grit and then buffed out. One of the most critical elements of the stern of our boat is our stainless framework. Now, 3 months ago, Paul Kenny came down, did all the welding for me, and I promised him I've had them in place, but I've had a bit of an issue is that I needed to finish all the spraying on the back of the boat before I could actually lower these stanchions down into place and mount them to the back of the boat. And if I just go back to when he welded them up, what we've actually done is we've created a support system that holds the stainless supports on the top of the lounge suite, but also down inside the framework of the boat. Now that's very, very important because the rear or the stern of the Catamaran is always wanting to lift and tear apart. And what I've been able to action here is a serious mount onto the back of the boat with a large stainless flange. Now, the thing is that I needed to finish the flow coating of the back of the boat, and that's now done. I'm pretty much in the position now where I need to polish these complete lounge suite areas around the back where this is going to lower down to, and then I'll be able to mount them. So I'm only going to do around the actual bases for now because I have a larger plan in it for Janet and Ellen to come in and finish the polishing of the entire stern section of the boat. We've done the sugar scoops, so they're done, but this particular lounge suite where all this meshes into the boat hasn't been done, and it's going to need to be done prior to us lowering this down. So I'm going to get started on the area immediately around the bases, and then we'll start working later on getting the rest of it done, including the incorporation of our new rear hatches that are on the lounge suite here at the back of the boat. So when I did the final spray on the stern of the boat here, there was a couple of areas that still had pinholes. I just dumped a whole heap of gel coat into it, and it's created, you know, some little pools of it. And all you need to do is get some, I got some 120 grit, and I just lightly run over it just to knock it down before you move up through your papers. You know, I'll then go to like a 320 and then maybe to a 600, 800, 1000, then to 1200 to get the polished finish that I'm after here. But this will remove material you'll go back and wear through, so we don't want to do that either. But what I've been able to do here, where I had quite a thick clump of it, is just simply get it down to the point that it's like sort of like an orange peel feel, and then we can start to polish through our papers and rid ourselves of the unevenness and the unfairness of this area that I had here. And you know, I've actually achieved that. So this is really starting to come along, and just remembering that this was where the mold was split, so it's as close to perfect as you get. Well, I've been going for 2.5 hours, and that now has been done up to 800 grit, and it's almost perfect. It could be polished up now. And yeah, I'm really, really happy. This is going to drop down, and I just need to make sure that I've got it all finished, because once it's down, there's not going to be a lot of chance to polish around it. But I thought I may as well do the whole back. So, just to prove it, 1200 grit, here we go. And then I'm going to stop there, and then I'm going to start working on the cutting compounds. But first things first, I want to get these acros out of the way. I want to drop it down and remove the acro props and make it look like it actually is finished, to give me a little bit of a boost. The advantage of a gel coat finish is that it can be wet sanded right through the papers from 300 right through to 1200 is generally where I stop, and then it can be buffed out. That is the advantage over paint. The disadvantage of gel coat is that it can be wet sanded from 360 grit through to 1200 grit and then buffed out. Because I've been going at this section along the back here for about 4 hours, and it's a 42-foot boat. Now I'm just going to take you back. About a year ago we decided to put a cap on the back of the boat, and it was an extra part that we made up a mold for. We put it on and we were wondering whether it was actually going to look integrated enough to look like it was all one piece. And I'll just show you this. I'll show you what it did look like. And there was plenty of fitting and toing and froing and lots of fairing and joining and integration that went on in this whole back section here. Now I'm going to show you what it looks like now after it's just had its first 1200 grit polish. It's not even buffed yet. I reckon it's perfect. Once it's buffed in, you are not even going to see that. It's finally time for me to whack in our bifold doors, and I've had these wrapped up for some months, I think since Sam was here in the end of May, and it's now Christmas, so time for me to lock it up. I want to try and keep the dust out of here now. We've actually had a pretty windy period and a lot of big storms, and whips up a lot of dust around the place, but by the same token, there's no more real spraying or anything going on in here. There will be a bit of sanding and sort of localised stuff, but certainly nothing like we've had over the last 2 years inside, 6 years. But anyway, so now we've got a lounge in here. I just want to put the doors in. I want to try and get a bit of a final look at the boat before we start to finish off all of these little detailed areas, and that's going to be bloody exciting for us. Just getting to all the little details like the laminate bulkheads, the nav station table, and all the little things, and all the wood trims, and the fitting of the appliances into the galley here is just going to be such a great thing for me. I'm very excited about it. It's going to mean a lot less hard graft and a lot more thinking, which is pretty much the whole job's been a lot of thinking. But for now, I've got the bifold doors there. I'm going to actually put them in, lock the place up for the night. And it's going to be really nice to actually have the whole boat locked up as well, to keep the air moving out here and the moisture and all the stuff that's been going on around us, because we've had such a volatile summer so far. Extreme heat, 16 degrees today, go figure. And then 2 days ago, 42. And then over the next week or so, we're expecting some massive storms to come through, and the rain does actually blow in this way, so I certainly don't want it in here just yet. Going to unwrap the doors. Now, I've actually forgotten what these look like. They've been put away for so long. I'll probably have to wrap them up again at some stage, but I'm doing a pretty much a rudimentary fit. Now, one thing to remember when you fit a door frame like this, particularly because it's aluminium, there's a good chance it's slightly out of shape. So this is actually a good test to make sure that it still is in shape. I would never ever fit a door like this without actually dry fitting it first with the doors in place, because if I glue that in, screw it in and glue it in, and then realise it doesn't fit, I'm going to have to modify the actual frame of the boat with the doors off. This is sort of a good process. Everything takes 2 or 3 dry fits on a boat to make sure everything fits right, and you're not drilling unnecessarily into areas that you don't want to have to repair and restore later on. So there's going to be a handrail here, so I haven't got much more room to work with here, but pretty much it's in the exact position I want it. There'll probably be 2 or 3 millimeters of each side of adjustment. Now, the other thing I've done too here is I've actually got some marks here where the holes are that I've got those barrels of solid epoxy. I'm going to put in some extra screws in to hold this in place. I'll just put one in today, and then I'm going to come back in and put some more in that is going to firmly hold this in place once I fix tech the whole thing in, and I'll do a complete perimeter seal around the outside of this door frame to make sure that we're going to get a perfect seal. I'm just going to put a simple stainless screw in here. One thing you have to consider with stainless screws is that you're going to get electrolysis and some major issues with corrosion here. So I'm going to coat these with some sort of a Tef gel or something as I put them in, and plus the fixed tech that's in there will also provide a barrier. So you always need to think about that galvanic issue, or I guess you call it electrolysis, between the dissimilar metals. We've got anodized aluminium, stainless, lots of things to happen here, but for now I'm just going to put 1 or 2 screws in just to hold it in place. I'm going into solid epoxy here. Standing there working away, and Johnny's across the road talking to his mate Gary, and it's just endless bullshit, to be honest. That's all you hear, and I love it. That's what I love about being around here. There's just endless bullshit conversations going on, and that's what keeps us blokes happy, is just the bullshit conversations are great, and I have plenty of them. Righto, that's one in place, and yeah, it's closing perfectly. In fact, the bifold locks are locking absolutely perfectly now. I've come across a problem. When we had these doors made, I actually asked if I could get a very low profile handle so that this window, when it folded back, this particular thing would fold flat against the wall, and I'm not sure I'm going to keep searching for some sort of a locking mechanism that does do that. That's problem number one. And there's never an easy run with this, but it's something I can fix on the fly. The stair module that I put in has created a bit of an issue for me. It's not a massive issue because I've still got an open door, but I can't physically open the bifold all the way back. The butterfly stair module in from the internal module, I actually put it in place thinking I'd have enough clearance, but I failed to acknowledge, and I wouldn't have known this until I put the door in anyway, that when a bifold opens, which is a bit of a bugger, because that now creates a bigger problem in that because this door has a handle that won't allow it to close entirely, that bugger is not going to open completely. However, I can open it right out. But then you've got no access to the helm station. So there's only one thing for it, that's to cut and chop the bottom step of the module there down here. If I bring this one down here and make this a smaller step, and that's not a biggie. I mean, after all the modifications I've done, that really isn't a huge effort, and it can be done relatively simply. It's just that it's going to mean a little bit more spraying. That's okay. That's okay. I can do that. I'll just mask up the windows, but I won't be doing it before I launch it on the water. I'm going to get the boat on the water and get the thing done prior to that event. But that is a little bit disappointing. I just could not have quite have envisaged that. This is what happens when you're sort of doing a bespoke or custom sort of modifications, is that you end up with these little problems that are just going to be endless. I've got the other door here. I'm going to get that in place and have a look at the entire picture, and then I'm going to start to worry about that a little bit later on. It'll give me good access in and out through the two doors, and in fact I can open it right out. I'm going to have to put some sort of a stopper here in the interim to hold this door open. Yeah, a bit disappointing, but you know, they're beautiful doors, and there is always a solution. You just got to be able to work them through. It really is quite a bit of adjustment in the hinges. It's only got 3 stainless screws in on these stainless hinges, but really important you put them in loose, because there's no guarantee this is going to fit, given that I've actually put the frame in place. So there's a good chance I'm going to have to remove them and adjust the door once I get it all in place here. So the important thing is, when you're putting in doors, always put the door together and then put it in. Don't put the frame in and then put the doors in, because as we've just shown, it doesn't fit, and we knew it wasn't going to, because I do have to make some adjustments. And I've marked it here and down here where the adjustments are needed. And similarly on the other side, it's actually was curving in slightly, and as a result the bifold would not engage, and the center door was about 2 millimeters. So we want to make sure that's absolutely perfect. So the key here will be to relieve it down in the bottom corner, just widen it slightly and then use the actual mounting screws that I've planned with the epoxy plugs that I put in the wall to hold the thing in place, rather than the actual hinge screws. I'm going to make sure that they don't actually have any bearing on the whole thing being held in place, because they're actually restricting the whole thing from closing as well. So I've got the doors out. Janet's come up to help me.
Do you want this or the sander?
The file sander. Now, I've been deliberating for some months, probably about 12 months, as to whether or not to leave a small drip rail on our hardtop. When I was fitting the large steel stanchion the first time, the only way I could get it in was to cut a small rebate in the top of the hardtop, and that sort of led me to the conclusion I'm about to come to. I always like the idea of having some sort of a drip rail on roofs and things, because there's nothing worse than water dripping on your head. But I've circumvented a lot of that problem by installing the rain gutters in the top there for potentially a rain catchment system, but more just to dissipate water forward. And certainly any water that's going to go over the back is obviously going to go off at speed, so it's not really going to land in the cockpit. But so what I've come to the conclusion is that I'm going to cut the flange off entirely off the hardtop, and that'll make for a nice neat edge. That way I end up with a nice smooth flow coat edge. I can fair it, I can paint it, I can make it look like it all belongs without having, you know, an unnecessary flange hanging off the back. So I'm about to get into it up on the roof here. There's no one around. It's going to be a very messy job because I'm going to have a lot of fiberglass, and essentially when I cut it out here to fit this guy in, it was the only way I could get it in because I already had the roof in place. I actually cut back to the edge, and I quite like that solid edge there. It makes a thick edge there. It will look nice once it's actually rolled, and what I'll potentially do is do a separate flow coat seam all the way along there. I won't need to glass it because it's already solid glass, but simply a nice flow coat edge there with maybe a little bit of texture on it might actually look quite nice. And as I said earlier, I've got a rain gutter here, so there's going to be bugger all extra water going to fall on here. So this can come off as well and get me down to a nice solid glass edge with a really nice sort of almost like a tape seam like I'd put on a kayak. It will create a little bit of work for me, but certainly a lot less work than leaving it on there and having to tidy up this absolute mess. So I've already started cutting up here. I've started slicing it with the grinder. It's a lot of dust going everywhere. No fun Fridays. It's Friday before Christmas and I've just fitted our doors, so I'm pretty happy about that. But I've got a bigger job pending. I've got to install the exhaust system next week, and there's only one way to do that, and that's to finish flow coating the engine rooms. So I've got a ton of stuff in here. Oh, I love my lounge. I actually laid down on it a moment ago. Could not believe how good it was. Okay, here we go. I'm going in here. I've got a ton of flow coat. Now I've got it in cups for a very good reason, because when I'm in here I don't have a lot of room to move and I don't want stuff going off too quickly. So I'm going to do to 250 mils at a time, and I've got to do a lot of stripe coating with a brush before I can actually get the roller onto it and finish the main bulk of the job. So in we go. Oh, the lengths I go to get you guys a footage. I mean, I don't know why I bother, because I'm not even sure you appreciate it, but hey, I'm in here, squeezed in the hole. In fact, actually the engine room's not too bad. Once you get beyond the bed, I've got standing room. I can actually stand up in here, and it's actually pretty good. But, you know, doing jobs like this, trying to film, it's fucking laughable. It really is. Oh, I got myself in all world of trouble there. I've got it in my hair, I got it down every orifice, and then I had some splash in my eye, which I try to avoid at all costs, but it just bloody thing just got me. Anyway, so I had to race out and flush my eye out. And I've got a couple of little spots here, but it's sort of done. Never happy with it. You're never happy with flow coat. It's always a mess. But you know, it just goes on, and it's basically just a sacrificial coating to be able to keep your walls clean. And to be honest, it adds a lot of light in here, which is nice to get rid of the dark green. And I'll get this bit in here done and under here, and then that'll pretty much call it quits. And then once I get all of this done, I can put in the exhaust, the raw water intake, the strainer, I can pretty much put in all the fuel system as well, which is bloody exciting stuff. Oh, what a mission. Got it in my hair, got it in my freaking arm hairs, my leg hairs, got it in every hair. So that's done. The entire engine room is now completely flow coated, and pretty happy to say that that is the end of it, to be honest. I don't even need to come in and touch it up. I was going to leave the ceiling up here, but no, let's just get it done. It's not a beautiful job, but it really doesn't need to be. All I'm trying to do here, oh, there's a bit of a run there. All we're trying to do here is just provide a sealed surface, and now I can mount all the bits and pieces. So I can pull all the masking tape off and get started. I've got some mounts up here for things like vented loops and the strainer and the like. So I'm going to probably put the strainer on this side so that it's away from all of my wiring, and that's the same on the other side. The outward side is generally going to be better for me for the strainer and away from the bulk of my wiring. I will have the battery there, but I don't want it anywhere near all those wires over there. I'm trying to keep it away from any electrics. The only issue with it here is that I do have the ECU right here, so I'm going to have to be a little bit careful, but you know, that's not something I can't do.